You think her message means she wants you back. But what it actually means is the most important thing you will ever learn about yourself. Let that sit for a second, because right now, if you got that text, the "Hey stranger," the "I've been thinking about you," the "How have you been?" after weeks or months of absolute silence, your chest is doing something. Your heart rate shifted. Some part of you that you've been trying to discipline, trying to quiet down, trying to bury under the gym sessions and the cold showers and the late night productivity grind, that part just woke up and it whispered something dangerous. It said, maybe this is it. Maybe she finally gets it. Maybe things are different now. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do with that feeling. But first, if you're new here and this is the first time you've landed on this channel, do yourself a favor and subscribe right now. Not for me, for you. Because if this is the kind of clarity you need today, you're going to need it again next week, next month, the next time life puts you in a position where your emotions are louder than your logic. This channel is a reminder, a recurring truth injection. Subscribe so that it finds you before you make a mistake you'll regret. Now, let's get into it. Here's what it really means when she reaches out after silence. It means she's checking. That's it. She is checking to see if you're still there. She is checking to see if the door she closed or the door she left ambiguously cracked still opens from the inside. She is checking on her investment. She is checking on her option. And the way you respond in the next 24 to 72 hours will tell her everything she needs to know about who you are now. And more importantly, it will tell you everything you need to know about who you are now. Because here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. How you respond to her after silence is a direct measurement of your self-respect. That's not an exaggeration. It's a diagnostic tool. It's a mirror. It will show you in real time whether the work you've been doing on yourself is real or whether it's just content you're consuming, so you feel like you're growing without actually growing. The response you send or don't send will reveal the truth about your emotional state more accurately than any journal entry, more honestly than any conversation with your best friend, more clearly than any late-night moment of self-reflection, because this is a live test, and the proctor is reality itself. So let's break this down from the ground floor. Let's dismantle the misconception first, because if we don't address what you actually believe in this moment, none of the rest of this lands. The misconception is this: you believe her reaching out is evidence of something. You believe it is evidence that she misses you, that she regrets her choices, that something has fundamentally shifted in how she sees you. You're building a narrative. You're connecting dots. You're saying to yourself, well, she wouldn't text if she didn't feel something. People don't just reach out randomly. There must be a reason. And your brain, that beautiful, terrible, pattern-seeking machine, is filling in all the blanks with the best possible story. The most hopeful version. The version where this is the beginning of something, not a repeat of something. That is the misconception. And it's not stupid. It's human. But it is costing you more than you know. Here is the hard truth. Her reaching out after silence is not evidence of a change in her. It is evidence of a change in her circumstances. Read that again. She did not text you because she's different. She texted you because something in her life shifted. Maybe she got bored. Maybe she ended something else. Maybe she saw something on social media that reminded her you exist. Maybe she's lonely at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and your name floated to the top of a mental list. Maybe she genuinely does feel something. And I'm not saying she doesn't, but feeling something in a moment of loneliness is not the same as choosing you with clarity, with consistency, with accountability. Feelings in a vacuum are not commitments. They're weather, and weather changes. You have to understand what silence is. Silence is not a pause. Silence is a statement. When someone who has access to you, who knows your number, who knows how to find you, goes quiet for weeks, for months, that silence is communicating something. It is communicating that in that period of time, whatever was happening in her life was more important than maintaining consistent contact with you. That might have been personal growth. That might have been pain. That might have been another person. That might have been simple disinterest. You don't always know the reason, but you always know the result. The result is she was absent. And absence is a choice, even when it masquerades as circumstance. That's called a pattern, not a mystery. Now here's why this happens. Here is the root cause. And this is where it gets uncomfortable because the root cause is not really about her at all. You allowed yourself to become an option because at some point you needed her validation more than you needed your own. That is the moment this all started. Not when she texted after silence, not when she went quiet. It started the moment you placed your sense of value outside of yourself and handed it to another person to hold. And when she holds it, she controls it. When she goes silent, she takes it with her. And then when she sends that little message, that small, low-effort signal, you feel a rush of relief because the part of you that outsourced its worth is suddenly getting fed again. That's not love. That's not connection. That is dependency dressed in romantic language. And it happens to good men, genuinely good men. Men who are loyal, men who are thoughtful, men who would show up without hesitation. It happens to those men specifically because their capacity for depth becomes a liability when it's aimed at someone who hasn't chosen them with equivalent depth. Your loyalty doesn't disappear. Your investment doesn't evaporate. You keep giving, keep staying available, keep leaving the door open, not because she's earned it, but because you've convinced yourself that the intensity of what you feel must be mirrored somewhere inside her. That if you feel this much, she must feel something too. And when she comes back after silence, it feels like proof, like vindication, like, see, I was right to hold on. But holding on to a door that someone else controls is not strength. It's a waiting room, and you've been sitting in it long enough. Here is what it costs you. And I want you to really hear this part, because this is the part people skip over when they're in the feeling. They skip straight to, what do I do? Without sitting long enough in, what has this already taken from me? It costs you momentum. Every time the cycle resets, every time she goes quiet and comes back and you respond with that familiar eagerness, that carefully crafted message, that calibrated coolness you're performing but not actually feeling, you lose a month. You lose 6 weeks. You lose whatever version of yourself you were becoming in the window of her absence. You were doing something in that silence. You were building, you were healing, you were reconstructing. And then one message brings you back to the same emotional coordinates you were at 6 months ago. The progress doesn't disappear entirely, but it gets buried, and you have to spend the next several weeks excavating yourself again. It costs you clarity, because every time you let her back into your mental real estate, she crowds out the questions you actually need to be asking. Questions like, where am I going? What am I building? Who am I becoming without the noise? Those questions require stillness to answer, but she fills the stillness. Her presence, even in a text thread, becomes the dominant frequency in your head, and the important, quiet, constructive thoughts can't compete with it. It costs you other opportunities, not just romantic ones. All of them. The new connections you don't make because you're half present. The risk you don't take because you're emotionally occupied. The version of yourself that would have stepped forward with full confidence if he wasn't secretly waiting for a response from someone who may never give him the answer he's actually looking for. And here is the hardest cost of all. It costs you your own respect for yourself, not in a dramatic way, not in a single moment. It happens incrementally, in the quiet moments after you've responded, after you've re-engaged, after you've reopened the chapter you said you closed. You feel it, you know it, that small, honest voice that says, you did it again. That is not self-hatred. That is self-awareness trying to reach you. And every time you override it for the comfort of reconnection, the voice gets a little quieter, not because it stops being true, but because you've trained yourself to mute it. Now, the reframe. Here is where everything shifts. Here is where we flip the entire frame and look at this situation for what it actually is, not what your emotions want it to be. Her reaching out after silence is not a problem. It is an opportunity, but not the opportunity you think. It is not an opportunity to reconnect. It is not an opportunity to prove yourself, to show her how much you've changed, to demonstrate your growth, to make her see what she's been missing. That framing still puts her in the center. That framing still makes her the judge and you the auditionee. The actual opportunity is this. You get to show yourself who you are now. You get to make a decision that either confirms or contradicts everything you've been telling yourself about your evolution. This moment is a referendum on your growth, and the vote isn't cast in words, it's cast in action, which brings me to the man I want you to think about. Not as an impossible ideal, not as a performance, but as a real, available version of yourself that is closer than you think. There is a man who has done this work. He's not a fictional archetype. He's made of the same material you are. He started from the same confusion, the same ache, the same late night spiral that you've experienced. But somewhere along the line, he made a decision, not a dramatic one, not a cinematic one, a quiet decision, an internal one. And it changed everything about how he moves in the world. This man knows what he's building, not in a vague, aspirational way. He knows specifically. He has a direction. He has projects. He has standards that are not negotiable, not because he's rigid or cold, but because he understands that without those standards, he is not himself. He is just a variable, adjusting his shape to fit whatever container she offers. This man does not chase, not because he's playing a game, not because he's performing indifference, but because when you genuinely have somewhere important to be, you don't stand at the door waiting to see if someone else will let you in. You walk through your own door. You go to your own life. You trust that the people worth having will find their way into that life because of who you are and what you're doing, not because of how available you were willing to be. This man has been hurt. Make no mistake. He has felt exactly what you're feeling. He has stared at a phone. He has rewritten messages. He has felt the pull of familiar comfort even when he knew it was coming from an unreliable source. He is not immune to emotion. He is not numb. He is not cold. He has simply made a decision about where he allows his emotional energy to flow, and he is disciplined about protecting that decision. He is present, fully, unapologetically present, in his work, in his relationships with the people who show up consistently, in his solitude, in his pursuit of the life he's designing. And that presence is magnetic, not because it's strategic, because it's real. Because there is nothing more attractive than a man who is entirely absorbed in the act of becoming his best self, not performing it, not narrating it, doing it. He doesn't talk about his standards, he lives them. And when someone who is absent reaches out with a casual hey, he doesn't feel a surge of hope. He feels a quiet clarity because he already knows what the right response is, not because someone told him, but because he has done enough internal work to trust himself. He trusts his own read on people. He trusts his own instincts. He trusts the evidence over the hope. And he is kind about it. This is important. This man is not bitter. He is not cold shouldering her to prove a point. He is not being deliberately distant to punish her or to perform strength. He responds, if he responds, with warmth and brevity, not hunger, not eagerness, not the low simmer of please say the right thing. Just calm, measured, warm brevity, because he respects himself enough not to perform, and he respects her enough not to pretend he doesn't know what this moment really is. That man is not far from you. He is the version of you on the other side of this decision. He is available right now. You don't need more time. You don't need a different situation. You need the decision, the one you already know you need to make. So here is what you actually do, not theoretically, not it depends on the situation. Here is what you do step by step, starting now. You stop waiting for the message to mean something more than it means. Stop interrogating it. Stop analyzing the timestamp. Stop rereading it looking for subtext. What you see is what it is. A reach, a check, an inquiry. Not a confession, not a revelation, not the turning point you've been rehearsing in your head. You take it at face value and you respond to it at face value, or you don't respond at all. Both are valid. Neither requires deliberation that lasts longer than 5 minutes. You stop matching her energy with your hope. That mismatch is where you keep bleeding. She sends a low investment message. You respond with a high investment emotion. You pour into that exchange everything you've been holding since the silence began, everything you've been processing, everything you've wanted to say, and you dress it up as cool or casual, but it's not. She can feel the weight of it, and weight is pressure, and pressure from someone she went silent on is not attractive. It's confirmation that her absence had the intended effect. You redirect the energy immediately. This is the most important action step I can give you. The moment you feel that surge, the moment the phone buzzes and the name appears and your nervous system activates, you redirect it, not suppress it. Redirect it, channel it, go to the gym, call the friend you've been neglecting, open the business document you've been avoiding, record the video, send the email, go for the run. Do the thing you've been putting off because you've been emotionally occupied. Use that activated energy as rocket fuel for your own trajectory. That energy is real and it is powerful. The question is only what you point it at. You respond, if you respond, from a place of fullness, not need. That means you eat before you text her, metaphorically and literally. You fill yourself up first. You check in with your own life, your own purpose, your own sense of direction. And then from that full place, if you choose to respond, you respond briefly, warmly, without agenda, without the subtext of please come back. Something like, good to hear from you. Hope you're well. And then you put the phone down. You don't wait for the follow-up. You don't architect the conversation toward the outcome you want. You respond and you return to your life. Because if there is something real to explore, it will survive your brevity. If it doesn't survive your brevity, if she goes cold again the moment she realizes you're not dancing, then she answered your question. She told you exactly what this was without you having to ask. And you didn't compromise yourself to get that answer. You stop going back to the fantasy. The fantasy is the enemy, not her, not the situation, the fantasy, the story you built where this works out the way you want it to, where she comes back clear and decisive and chooses you fully. That story is not inherently wrong, but when you run it constantly, when you use it as a substitute for actual forward movement, it becomes a prison. And every time she reaches out, she gives that prison a new lock. You have to consciously choose the present over the narrative. The present is what's actually happening. The narrative is what you wish were happening. You can hold a hope and still operate from reality. They're not mutually exclusive, but reality has to be the governing force. And finally, you stop shrinking your life to make room for her return. This is the one that cuts the deepest because it happens quietly. You stop pursuing the new person because it feels weird given everything. You stop fully committing to the new city, the new routine, the new chapter because there's a part of you that keeps leaving a door open. You stop growing into the full width of your life because you've unconsciously preserved a space that's sized and shaped for her. Stop. Close that space. Fill it with yourself. Fill it with your ambition, your friendships, your curiosity, your hunger for experience. A full life is not a life without love. It's a life that doesn't pause for uncertainty. You stop waiting. You stop shrinking. You stop hoping silence will become clarity on its own. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop leaving your worth in someone else's hands and then wondering why you feel empty when they go quiet. You start building with the kind of focus that tells the world, and more importantly, tells yourself that you are not in a waiting room. You are in a workshop. You are making something. You are becoming someone. And that person does not have time to reorganize his entire emotional world every time someone who was absent sends a casual hello. You are the answer to this situation, not her response, not her explanation, not her coming back with the perfect acknowledgement of what she put you through. You, your decision, your direction, your self-reclamation. You are what resolves this. That is not a hollow affirmation. That is a structural truth. The anxiety you feel, the confusion, the hope, the ache, all of it is looking for resolution. And your mind wants to find that resolution in her. It wants her to say something that makes it make sense, something that closes the loop, something that validates the investment you made. But that resolution is not available from her. It never was. It is only available from you, from the moment you decide what you will and will not accept. From the moment you orient your life around your own growth instead of around her presence or absence. From the moment you look at that message and feel not a desperate hope, but a quiet acknowledgement that you know exactly what this is and you are not ruled by it. That is freedom. Real, earned, unperformable freedom. Not the stoic facade you put on for the public. Not the I don't care you say to your friends. The actual internal quiet that comes from knowing who you are and where you're going and being completely unwilling to let a text message alter that trajectory. That quiet is what you're working toward. And it is closer than you think. It is on the other side of this decision, this moment, this message that's sitting in your phone right now. You are not a backup plan. You are not an option. You are not a variable that adjusts to the availability of someone else. You are a man with a life worth living, with a purpose worth pursuing, with a depth of character that deserves to be met fully, consistently, clearly by the people you let into your world. And anyone who needs months of silence to figure out if they want to be part of that world has already given you the answer. You just have to have the courage to receive it. Receive it, not with bitterness, with clarity, with gratitude, even, because every person who shows you who they are at the level of consistency is giving you information, and information is power. Use it. You are not broken by this. You are being refined by this. The heat is real, but it is not destruction. It is the process of becoming. Every man who has eventually built something solid with someone incredible went through a version of exactly this before he got there. Not because he suffered enough to deserve it, but because he learned in the crucible of moments exactly like this one, who he actually was, what he actually valued, and how to move through the world from that understanding rather than in spite of its absence. You are in that crucible right now, and you are not going to waste it. You are going to read this moment correctly. You are going to respond from your fullest self or not respond at all. You are going to return to your life, your actual, ongoing, ever-expanding life, with the kind of focused energy that makes even you surprised at what you can build when you're not using half your bandwidth on someone else's uncertainty. You are the answer, not her text. You, not her explanation. You, not her return. You, this is your moment, not to win a situation, to rise above it, to step fully into the version of yourself that doesn't need validation from absence to feel whole. That version is not a future self. He is not something you have to earn. He is what remains when you strip away the need for approval and stand in the truth of who you actually are. Stand there, stay there, build from there. If this hit something in you today, if some part of this landed in a place that needed exactly this truth, subscribe to this channel right now. Because this is not a one-time lesson. Growth doesn't happen in a single sitting. You will need to hear this again. You will need reminders. You will need someone to speak clearly when your emotions are trying to overrule your intelligence. That is what this channel is here for. Subscribe and let it keep showing up for you the way you're learning to show up for yourself. And know this, you are not here alone. Every man watching this has sat in some version of this exact seat, feeling some version of this exact weight. This community is made of people who chose clarity over comfort, truth over flattery, growth over the seductive stillness of staying where they were. You belong here, and you are already becoming exactly who you need to be. Now go live like it.